The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Welcome to Health to a Lifetime, for a lifetime, I should say. I'm your host, Don McIntosh, and today I'm delighted to have Dr. David DeRose with me. Welcome, Doctor.
Good to be with you, Don.
Now, you're a medical doctor, and you work at the Lifestyle Center of America. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we're located in southern Oklahoma, and a lot of people say, southern Oklahoma? I mean, where is that? I mean, it's totally off the map, if you will, for most people as far as their experience. But we're about midway between Oklahoma City and Dallas, Texas. People come from all over the country and outside the country to focus on lifestyle-related diseases in a concentrated way, whether it be diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, host of problems. We address there with a Christian staff and a very structured, focused approach.
It's a beautiful facility. I've been able to visit there once, driving up from the Dallas area, and then I was able to stop in there, and it's nice on that hill. You have all those walking trails, a beautiful facility. You also do research, don't you? You publish papers and whatnot in the medical literature.
Exactly. We've been trying to say, look, if the Lord has given us light that makes a difference as far as health, we should be able to demonstrate it in a way that actually changes the world's perspective. You see, a lot of times people say, well, that's religion. Don't bring that into the medical dialogue. But what we're saying, look at God doesn't work outside of natural laws typically. Yes, He does the miraculous, no question. But God chooses typically to work through the laws of our being. He shows us how to cooperate with Him. And so we believe that sound science and true biblical revelation are in total harmony, and that we can demonstrate that. That's one of our focuses there at the Lifestyle Center of America.
We're going to talk today about weight management, obesity. How big a problem is it, and why should we even talk about it? Some people are going, oh no, here it goes again. Tell us a little bit about the magnitude of the problem and how we can address this.
The reason for talking about it, Don, is not to put another guilt trip on people. I mean, we got Madison Avenue saying, look, if you can't fit into this size 5 dress, you're no good. We don't need any more of that. God doesn't say, look, if you weigh so much on this chart, then you can be in my kingdom. I mean, forget all that stuff. God accepts us right where we're at on the basis of His gracious sacrifice of His Son. We don't have to worry about our weight as far as our standing with God. But as Christians, God wants to give us abundant life. And it's true that overweight is a burden on our bodies. I mean, it's hard on our joints. It increases our risk of certain types of cancer and heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes. And we see people at the Lifestyle Center with these kind of problems. And we see people with amputations. We see people with blindness. We see people who've had strokes. And many times, one of the risk factors that help to contribute to this state of dis-ease was being overweight. So we need to talk about the subject, not to put a guilt trip, but to give people some help, some resources that can help them be successful.
It even starts when we're young, doesn't it?
No question about it. I mean, it's easiest to learn new habits when we're young, but it's never too late to learn.
Okay, let's talk about that. When we're young, I mean, I've noticed, I read a little bit of research about this once, about how supermarkets are organized. And they're all organized so that people will make the choice for this food or that food. You can't just go in there. I remember I wanted to display some product that I happened to be involved with a few years back before I was a nurse and now a pastor. And I wanted to just display some things in this store. They said, no, this is where that goes, this is where this goes. And it's a highly competitive thing. It has all to do with food choices. What can you tell us about food choices and how to make them?
Well, food choices are typically made because of what we think we like. But I like to change that whole perspective, Don, because what the research shows us is that we don't choose the foods that we like anywhere near as much as we like the foods that we choose. They say, come on, right? We're playing with words here,
semantics there.
Yeah, semantics. You figure that from you send a guy away to school for years and years, and look what happens to him. Don, here's the point. All of us, when we were growing up, coming back to these childhood influences, choices were made for us. And we developed tastes. We developed enjoyments. I ask groups when I speak with them, I say, how many of you have ever been at a table where foods from another culture were being served? Right? Can you relate to that?
Yeah. Okay. And I've been at those tables, but it's not a normal thing.
Okay, not a normal thing, but let me ask you this. Have you ever been served some just wonderful food to people of a certain culture that you tasted and it just didn't cut it?
Yeah, I have.
You can relate to that.
Uh-huh.
Do you mind me just being curious and asking what it was?
Well, it was, in this particular case, I was in Romania, and there was a great spread of things, and there was eggplant that was called vinete, and it was this pureed eggplant. They were all talking about how wonderful it was, and I was going, yeah, I was just going, da, 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 duh.
So it really wasn't too tasty. Okay.
No.
Here's the point. Were your taste buds different than those Romanians there?
No.
Yeah, the same taste buds. How come something was so delicious to them and to you? You could say if I gave you 5 choices, that would probably be the last one, right?
Right. It would be the last one.
Well, this is a common experience. Why do we like the foods we like? The good news, Don, there's good news about this. God has created us with the ability to choose what we will enjoy.
So I'm going to like vinete. I'm going to like this eggplant spread by the end of this program.
Don, here's how it works.
Okay.
If you habitually make choices, provided you're not allergic to the food or, we're sick the first day you ate it and we're vomiting and there's some association in your brain with that and illness. Point is, if we habitually make choices, we actually tend to develop enjoyments. We've all seen this. It's been shown in the medical research literature. Classic study. I love this study. It was done in New York City. It was the pilot study for something called the WINS study.
WINS?
Yeah, WINS. Women's Interventional Nutrition Study.
Okay.
It's a study that's ongoing right now.
All right.
The hypothesis behind this study is that women who have had breast cancer, if they eat a high-fat diet, will increase the risk of recurrent breast cancer. So the way this study was designed is they were going to help women decrease their fat consumption.
Say goodbye to the fat taste.
Yeah, say goodbye to high-fat foods at least. And then they predicted that these women would have less risk of breast cancer recurrence as time went on. But here's what happened, Don. Before the funding agencies wanted to shell out the bucks, this is a huge study taking place through multiple centers throughout the country. I'm sure the budget is, in the millions. Before they funded it, they said, we want to make sure that you can get women to decrease their fat consumption. So they did this pilot study to see if the intervention worked, to see if nutritionists could help women who had had breast cancer decrease their fat consumption.
They couldn't do it.
Believe it or not, they could.
They did.
They did. It worked. They went from maybe 35 to 40% of their calories as fat, it's pretty typical in America, down to 20 to 25%. I tell you this story because here's what happened. The majority of those women who dramatically decreased their fat consumption, they lost the taste. In fact, they developed a distaste for the high-fat foods that they used to enjoy.
How?
Their tastes had changed by changing their choices.
Okay, they made the decision.
Yeah. So here's the message, Don. When people are sitting here, they're listening to us talking, and they're saying, but I like my high-fat foods. I like the foods I'm eating. God has given them the ability, if they make changes and stick with them, to develop new enjoyments.
Okay. Now, I've heard that it takes about 90 days to get over the fat taste. Is that right?
What I find, Don, is the taste and the desire for things has a lot to do with several questions. One that we should talk about first is the whole issue of, quote, addictions. Now, when I start talking about addictions when it comes to food, I'm sure we've got psychologists and psychiatrists listening in, and they say, it's Dr. DeRose. I mean, he's specialty internal medicine, preventive medicine, master's in public health. Those aren't psychological degrees. I mean, he's on thin ice when he's talking about addictions. Okay, we don't have to use the word addiction. A lot of our viewers can relate, though. Let's use the word problem foods.
Problem foods.
As I've worked with lots of people, hundreds of people with weight problems, almost every single one of them has some problem foods. Whether you call it an addiction or not, there are foods that they can't control their consumption of.
Brownies.
Could be brownies. Another one on the list that's often high is ice cream, chocolate in general, chips. People say, many people say, not everyone, they say, I can't control my consumption of that food. That food, then, is a problem food for you, whether you call it an addiction or not. You know what you need to do with problem foods if you want to develop new tastes?
Don't have them.
That's
at all,
right.
Ever.
Clean break. Just like the alcoholic walks away from alcohol. Just like the nicotine addict has got to walk away from nicotine. If you've got an addictive relationship, problem food, okay? Whatever term you want to use, the way to develop a new enjoyment is to walk away from it, make a clean break. Don, it's the path to freedom. It's a path to freedom. A lot of people, I ask them this question, my favorite questions that I ask about this topic of my groups. I'll ask you.
All right, go ahead.
What sounds more appealing to you? To deny yourself for a little while, or to deny yourself for the rest of your life?
For a little while.
See? You've done it too. You made a brilliant argument for making clean breaks. Because no, think about it. When you deny yourself
for a little while.
For a little while, you know what that is? That's the cutting back program. That's what most people, they say, well, I'm just denying myself a little, you know, I'm just going to eat ice cream once a week. That's torture. Because you're telling yourself the whole time that ice cream is good, it's a reward, but you got to deny yourself. That's the denying yourself for a lifetime. The easiest way is to make a clean break. It's tougher at first, but then the Lord helps you develop new enjoyments.
I'm going to try it. I think now I'm going to try that vinate, that eggplant stuff, just when I get home. I'm going to say, fix it up, and I'm just going to eat it. So if my mother-in-law is watching, she's going to be happy. Can you explain to us, we got about a minute and a half before the break, let's get started on this at least, how the way we eat affects our weight? What are the issues that are important there?
I would say one of the most important that we've got to talk about is meal timing. It's an underestimated factor. There's a lot of misinformation about meal timing. In a nutshell, and we'll explore this more in detail, eat a good breakfast, midday meal, excellent. Those calories you eat at night, you've got to be extremely careful with.
Okay, so big breakfast, big lunch?
Big lunch isn't bad if you need a fair amount of calories.
And then,
if you're really trying to trim down, you may want to watch the size of the lunch, too.
All right, light supper.
Light supper.
We've been talking with Dr. David DeRose. If you'd like information, more information on the weight loss program there at the Lifestyle Center of America, or more information that you can just use in your own house, your own home, your own community, you can contact the Lifestyle Center of America at their webpage at www.lifestylecenter.org. Boy, it's hard for me to say ORG for some reason. Or you can call us here at 3ABN and get the contact numbers from us. When we come back, we're going to talk more about weight management. We're going to talk more about what you can do to be successful. Join us when we come back.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Deal and Dr. Eileen Luddington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Deal and Dr. Luddington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge, so call or write today.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. David DeRose from the Lifestyle Center. We're glad you're here today.
It's good to be with you, Don.
We're talking about a very weighty matter, that being weight loss and whatnot, and we're talking about really how to address that. We talked a little bit about food choices. Do we need to talk about that anymore before we go on?
Well, there's a lot about food choices that is so important. You know, if I were to say one food choice issue that's more important than another, we've talked about that problem food issue. I mean, that is critical. But the other one, if someone says, I really can't relate to that, problem foods, I don't have any problem foods, the other very important principle is eating more whole, natural, plant-based foods. And I mean, it harkens back, in my mind, to the original diet that the Creator gave. Now, I've got, Christians and many, walks of Christianity, and a lot of them say, yeah, Dave, that's fine. You can point to, Genesis 1, and you can say the ideal diet, a plant-based diet, but hey, I mean, Jesus himself, I mean, God the Father, I mean, they instituted the sacrificial system. I mean, animal sacrifices, it wasn't a flesh-free diet. But, it's very interesting, Don. And again, I'm not a theologian here, so, I mean, some are going to want to call me to task. But I notice when God seems to be preparing his people, trying to really communicate with them the truths of his character, he often has a period of dietary change. It happened in the wilderness. And God largely withdrew flesh foods from the Israelites in the wilderness. There still was the sacrificial system, but manna was what they were subsisting on.
What is it?
In Genesis, that plant-based diet was designed for Adam and Eve, who were designed to live forever in intimate communion and mental fellowship as well as physical fellowship with their Creator. What does all this have to do with what I'm talking about? What it has to do with what I'm talking about is there seem to be some unique benefits to that plant-based diet, and it's clear when it comes to weight reduction. Because these plant foods, whether it's the fruits, the whole grains, the vegetables, they tend to be less calorically dense. Does that mean something to you?
Well, it just means that they are not as hard on your system.
That's right. They don't give you as many calories, for sure. I mean, if we took two big vats, we stick them here in front of us, one, each of them holds, how big would a vat, 5 gallons maybe? 2 5-gallon Glad vats, on a table here in front of us. You fill one with iceberg lettuce. We smash it in there. We use all our strength. We just cram that iceberg lettuce in. And another one, we put milk chocolate in.
Oh, man, no question. Milk chocolate's going to do you in. It's very dense.
Yeah, a lot more calories, right? Here's the issue. When we talk about weight reduction, you don't have to cut back on the amount you eat if you cut back on the caloric density. If you fill yourself up, if you satisfy yourself with these plant-based foods, the fruits and the whole grains and the vegetables. People at the Lifestyle Center of America, when they come to our program, they don't come usually because they want to be vegetarians. They know our diet's vegetarian. I'll tell you a secret. We've had people smuggle meat into the facility.
Really? It didn't blow up?
One guy, no, they didn't blow up. We don't search the rooms. He smuggled beef jerky in. He was so sure he couldn't survive. But you know what he found? And he fessed up to this at the end of the program. He found the food tasted great. He wasn't having to deny himself. So here's the point. If you eat these more calorically dense calorically dense foods over here, the chocolate, the meat, the
avoid
fats,
those.
If you eat those, you're going to gain weight. If you want to lose weight, you avoid them, and you shift to the plant-based diet. Not only does it have less calories, it tends to be lower in sodium. Many people who are carrying some extra pounds have high blood pressure. Many of them, if you drop that sodium content, the blood pressure comes down.
The water follows the salt?
Water follows the salt. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. People with fluid balance problems, they say, hey, stay away from the water, right? No, as long as your heart's fine and your kidney's fine, drinking more water actually helps to get rid of sodium and actually gets rid of excess fluid. Same with watching your sodium content. The other thing when it comes to these natural food choices is the form of the food. A lot of people think it would be excellent to drink lots of juice, juicing. And I've got friends who juice, and I've got patients who said, listen, when I started juicing, I started feeling a lot better. Well, you know what? Most Americans are not eating enough fruits and vegetables. So sure, drinking juice, fruit juice and vegetable juice is going to give you some benefits.
Right.
But when it comes to the calories,
increases them.
It does. Have you ever made fruit juice, Don?
Carrot juice.
Carrot juice, you've made that?
Yeah.
How about apple juice? You ever made that?
Apple juice, celery juice.
How many apples does it take to make a glass of apple juice?
Man, it takes a lot.
Yeah, it depends on your juicer, I guess, but
Right.
maybe 4 or 5 apples.
Mine's a Champion.
It's a Champion? Okay, so you
8,
make
10.
this apple juice, okay?
Macintosh apples.
Macintosh, hey, great, great. You drink that apple juice down. How long does it take you to drink a glass of apple juice?
Well, unfortunately, it takes me not very much time at all to eat or drink anything.
Okay, but it would take you a lot longer to eat 8 apples or 5 apples.
It would.
Here's the issue. The more you refine the food, this is actually studied in the medical literature. You take the apples, you put them in the form of apple sauce. The apple sauce, same number of calories, gives you much less satisfaction per calorie. You go the apple juice step, much less satisfaction per calorie. If you want the most satisfaction per calorie,
Chew it.
chew it, eat those whole fruits, those whole vegetables, those whole grains. The Creator really gave us a program to help us keep more trim.
Chew it, don't stew it. If you did, you blew it. Something
Wow,
like
did you
that.
just come up with that?
Just came up with that.
Well, that's impressive.
Okay, so simple foods as grown. Again, back to that again, the Genesis diet. You know, you had mentioned that God took people into the wilderness and basically took away all their meat, gave them something which they thought was bad, but it turned out to be very good, manna. But that kind of brings me back to an issue that I think we left kind of at the break, and that is, when should we eat? When did God give that food? When should we eat? And what should be the largest meal, and how, and when, and whatever?
Well, I mean, I hadn't thought of the parallel with the manna, with it, you know, coming in the morning. But meal timing is critical. A lot of people say, yeah, Dr. DeRose, I know that. You know, at night, you know, you're just relaxing and kicking back, watching TV maybe, so you don't burn the calories. No, no, no. It's a lot more than that. You are actually a different person, Don, at night than you are in the morning.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Well, I hope it's not quite that bad. I've never lived in your home. I guess we did stay in a home together once.
That's right. It was okay.
Traveling. So.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the situation.
All right.
Early in the morning, your body is geared for productivity and performance. Study after study shows if you eat a good breakfast, you perform better. The body takes calories and transforms them for output early in the day. Later in the day, your body moves into a restorative mode. Instead of being, like you were early in the day, state of what we call lipolysis, fat breakdown.
Lipolysis.
Yeah, lipolysis,
Okay.
fat breakdown. That's favored in the morning, lipolysis. Later in the day, as you're restoring body processes, you move into a state of lipogenesis,
Lipogenesis.
the creation of fat.
Okay.
Okay? So when you eat late at night, what's happening is metabolically, your body is primed to take those calories and store them. What we want to do is we want to shift our caloric intake to earlier in the morning. And now this brings up another issue, and this has been, I think, misunderstood. I've read a lot of the medical literature out there, and we always get controversy in our program because we emphasize 2 or at most 3 meals a day. We always get people say, Dr. Rose, you know, my dietitian says 5 meals, 6 meals, 7 meals. I have diabetes.
Let me guess. Yeah, diabetics.
Yeah, I'm supposed to eat throughout the whole day. You know what the average diabetic, you know what's happening to that person? They're gaining more and more weight, and their diabetes is getting more and more
Worse.
out of control. Because weight is one of the things that causes insulin resistance. Insulin doesn't work like it should.
So I'm a diabetic listening today. I should really have just 2 or 3 meals a day.
Let me tell you, though, Don, before we change
Yeah.
their meal schedule, we change their medication schedule.
And that's the beauty of a lifestyle center approach, probably.
That's exactly it. When people come to our center or other centers like ours, it's a structured environment where the doctors are working with them. We can change their medications. We can get them on an optimal diet. We can often in type 2 diabetes, get people off their insulin. A paper that we presented in Washington, D.C. at a big national meeting in '98, we actually showed in a series of diabetes patients, 70% of them, of the type 2 diabetics who came on insulin, were off their insulin in just 19 days.
Amazing. So, and most of them are overweight, because we're talking about overweight.
That's typically the case.
And that addresses it. So, is it fair to say then that if we eat a big breakfast, we're going to lose weight?
Well, actually, it really should probably start, Don, at night. Because if you eat the big meal at night, I'll tell you, you can get up as early as you want in the morning. You're not going to be hungry. I mean, you probably still got food sitting in your stomach from the night before.
So, if you cut out that evening meal, you're going to lose weight.
That's often where it starts. And again, if you're on medication for blood sugar, you got to do this with a doctor's supervision.
Watching.
Definitely.
Do your blood sugars.
But dropping off that evening meal is a power, and it's been studied. It's been studied in the medical literature. You change your meal timing, you'll lose weight.
Now, I'm a nurse, but I'm also a minister, and I was gripped by that story from Exodus that you shared. When you look at that story, you only could get the food till 12 noon. It melted away. You couldn't get up at night and eat. And if you tried to keep it overnight, it went bad. You couldn't have a big evening meal.
Isn't that amazing?
Could God have known about the Lifestyle Center? Maybe that was his Lifestyle Center.
Hopefully, the Lifestyle Center is learning what God's been trying to teach us for a long time, and we're sharing that. That's our vision, Don.
Amazing. So anything else about the times that we should eat? Big breakfast before what, 9 o'clock in the morning?
I don't like to specify the times because, different people are on different schedules. But what we find is many people have weight problems. That evening meal is what really sabotages them. And a lot of people, one of the keys, in fact, a woman in our program right now at the Lifestyle Center of America just left. She saw me when she arrived. She had talked with me several months before coming. She said, Dr. DeRose, that suggestion worked. She was frustrated. She's a young lady, actually fairly thin, but still had a little bit of weight to lose. She didn't know what to do. I suggested leaving off the evening meal. She said it worked. That was the secret for her.
I've tried the 2 meals a day, and I go back and forth with that in 3. And the reason is, and this is probably the last thing we can talk about, but the reason is because it's good for me if I eat at 9 and say 3 o'clock and nothing else. But it doesn't work out with anyone else's schedule that I have to deal with. And food is such a social thing where barriers are broken down. What do you say to someone that has that type of job?
When I say, Don, welcome to the real world. We can talk about all the ideals, but the Lord will help you to say which of the ideals can I incorporate in my real life.
Sure.
I mean, Jesus stayed up all night sometimes. Is that a healthful practice?
Not for melatonin.
Yeah, but you know what? God was leading His
Yes.
Son to do that. He did nothing but what the Father revealed. And so you can look on the surface, you can say, well, that's really not the best. But listen, I know God's leading in your ministry. He'll continue to do it. He'll lead our viewers. As they take these principles, they say, Lord, what would you have me to do? Give them the guidance and the power to put it into practice.
We've been talking with Dr. David DeRose. We've been talking about weight, how to get rid of it, how to keep it off in a healthy way. If you'd like more information, contact the Lifestyle Center at www.lifestylecenter.org or contact us here at 3ABN. And thanks for watching. We hope you have health that lasts for a lifetime.